Hi everyone, and welcome to this video. This is Sean Techno. For the newbies, I'm visually impaired, so that's why I look the way I look. So this actually is continuing as a video that I entitled My Story. So this will go in the same playlist as well. But there's one time in my life that I haven't talked about, which I think talking about will help me, as well as tell you a little bit more about myself, which I don't mind doing. And then the next video is actually going to be interesting, and that's going to be the best way to assist those of us with visual impairments if you come across one of us, and just some tips and tricks, some things to be mindful. And so we'll talk about advocating in the next video. But this video, I want to take you guys back several years to May 23rd, I think it was, and the time was 9:45 p.m. Now, imagine, if you will, have you ever been 5 minutes away from death? I have. And if you have, do you remember it all? I do. That's what I'm going to be talking about today. So if you are listening with some younger kids, maybe not the best idea. That's why my videos are marked not for younger kids. So we begin in my bedroom. I am not breathing very well. An alarm is going off. A family member comes up to see why the alarm is not being shut off. That alarm is, to assist me in becoming organized, and at that time, and so that was an alarm for me to go to bed, because with my epilepsy, I have to go to bed at a certain time. Again, I'll put a link in the description for that video.
YouTube. Now,
sorry.
Top 5 ways the iPhone 11 is better than...
Okay, well, anyway, sorry, that was my speech synthesizer. Anyway, so we go into my room, we find that I'm not breathing. So that was my mom, actually, who found that. And I could breathe a little bit, so I could kind of talk like this. And so essentially she was asking me if I thought I needed an ambulance. And at first I said no. Then it became clear when she had me raise my hands above my head to try to help the breathing, try to help breathe better, after calling the ambulance and saying, hey, my son's not breathing very well. And so I again, the hand thing, raising the hands above the head, did not work. So I was rushed to the hospital, and I remember that a CPAP, actually I remember walking, I remember walking to the ambulance, and getting on and sitting down, and a CPAP was placed over my nose and my mouth. Yes, because I couldn't really answer the guy's question correctly. So the first question that was asked was, before we came, were you able to breathe at all? And my answer was a little, but what they got out of it was no. And I don't wonder, because something was in my nose and my mouth, so I couldn't really talk very well. So they were, meaning the ambulance, I remember a discussion of which hospital I should go to. We figured out a hospital, and we were off. And I remember the funny thing was, when the guy who was driving, or who was assisting with the ambulance, he said, sir, to me, he said, "Sir, the lights are just a precautionary measure. The lights in the siren are just precaution." And I can remember even thinking, well, I'm not going to be able to see the lights, but I didn't say anything. Um, and during that time, I didn't really have any room to feel scared or anything. I was just focusing on breathing because I could not breathe. And so I remember going um, into the hospital, and the uh, the individuals in the ambulance had poked me with an EpiPen, which has like a needle and it has some medicine. And they did that about 3 times because I remember the guy on the ambulance saying, "All right, the third time seems to have done the trick." He's, I think I was might have been breathing a little bit better then. And then so we arrived at the hospital, and uh, I can remember my clothes being cut off, and which was fine actually. The shirt, I didn't even like that shirt, and the shirt I remember had a hole in the left side of it, and it was an orange shirt, and I can't see any color, but I just remember from someone tell me that the shirt was orange. Anyway, the orange shirt was cut off, which was fine. I didn't like how it felt, and so but then I remember the lady in the emergency room. She actually put a catheter in where the catheter needs to go in the private area, and I can remember kind of thinking. I think it was later that I thought this, but wondering why she didn't tell me what she was doing. She just did it. And of course, I was, like I said, about 5 minutes away from death. I can remember the guy from the ambulance saying if we would have brought him here 5 minutes later, he would not have survived. And the scary part of this was nothing had really hurt until I got into the hospital, and I, all of a sudden, my head just was splitting hurt. It was hurting so bad. And apparently, what caused that was the poke of the EpiPen, or the medicine in the EpiPen. And keep in mind, I had this done like 3 times. So whatever's in that EpiPen, um, it just made my head hurt like it had never hurt. So I remember the last thing I remember is after the catheter was put in place. Um, I can remember, actually, there are 2 things. One thing, I can remember them trying to put something down my throat, and I remember me raising my hands trying to get whatever they were doing, get that thing away from my mouth, because they were trying to put it in my nose, and the tube through my nose and in my mouth, and they weren't telling me exactly what they were doing. But I just remember the nurse saying, "No, no, no." And then all of a sudden I heard, "We're losing them." And then, boom. As you guys would say, fade to black. Basically, I was unconscious. But I remained in the hospital for about 3 or 4 days. And I couldn't talk because the tube was down my throat and in my nose. So, thank goodness for the iPhone. I texted, and I didn't have my iPhone that night I went to the hospital, but I did have my brother Drew's iPhone, and so I used it to communicate. And then they brought my iPhone. They, meaning my family members, brought my iPhone, and I was able to text back and forth. That's how I was able. That's how I was communicating. I was through texting. I couldn't talk. I didn't have the use of speech. And then apparently, according to the doctors there, because something to do with the stridor, the doctors there really didn't make a lot of sense. They were not. They were kind of all over the place, but the stridor had made it so I had pneumonia due to the stridor. And as a result of, I think as a result of the pneumonia and as a result of the stridor, I now have asthma. And so that's another thing, that's another challenge I've had to overcome. But I guess the point in making this video is say, you call escaping 5 minutes away from death luck. I don't call it that. I call it God saving my butt. Guys, I can remember, I know I haven't said it yet, I can remember my heart slowing down before the fade to black scene or whatever. As they were saying, we're losing, actually a little bit before they said we're losing him, I remember my heart slowing down. It was thumping really hard against my chest, and it was slowing down. Like I was dying, or I was becoming unconscious. And it was, I didn't really have time to feel scared, frightened or anything, but it's a little kind of eerie thinking back toward it, but I don't call it luck that I was saved. God saved my life more times than I count, and I can do nothing but be grateful. Anyway, guys, that's the continuation of my story. I made it out okay. I have asthma as a result of all that, but I'm here today, and I'm 29 and I'm still kicking. Anyway, guys, just thought I'd share that with you, just to, if you guys are feeling, low, or if you guys are going through something, just hang in there and know that God can do anything. I certainly have seen that throughout my lifetime, through epilepsy episodes, and so on and so forth. But anyway, guys, I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for watching this video. And if you guys ever have any questions, I don't mind answering any of your questions. So thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video where we will discuss advocacy. Thanks, guys. Have a great day. Bye.
Stop recording video.